Have you ever been made to feel like you're too much? You're either too sensitive, you're too clingy, you're too distant, you're too cold and emotionless. I'm pretty sure that at some point in time, we've all either been told that or felt that in a variety of relationships, right? Whether we're dating someone, whether it's in a friendship dynamic, or even if it's with family. Sometimes people are just like, I can't handle you, you're too much. But here's the thing, I want to offer a different perspective. It's not that you're too much, it's that your needs are being unmet. And unsurprisingly, your natal chart can tell you exactly what you need, specifically in relationships. So often, it feels like we're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. We're in relation with someone and they want us to be a certain way or they want to have a certain experience. And perhaps we just don't meet that experience or we're just not comfortable sort of fitting into their paradigm. And often we try to shrink ourselves, we try to make ourselves palatable in order to keep the peace or to keep the relationship going. But here's the thing, the more that you deny your needs, the more that you deny yourself. And denying yourself, it just ain't it, babe. All right. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about certain placements in your natal chart that can speak to exactly what you need in relationships. So you can get off the hamster wheel of trying to fit into someone else's story and understand yourself so that you can align with someone or someone's who can actually meet those needs. All right. So if you want to know more, stick around. You definitely don't want to miss this. Hello, my loves. As always, I hope that this video finds you well and in excellent spirits. If you're new around here, hi, hello, and welcome. My name is Mel. I'm a professional astrologer and I'm the founder of Divine Feminine Works, where I help people unlock their divinity and discover their magic. So if you're new, welcome. And as always, if you are returning, welcome back. So today's video is all about meeting your needs in relationships, or should I say having your needs met in relationships, and the fact that a lot of people aren't too much. They're just unmet. And of course, I couldn't bring this video without putting an astrological spin on it. Where to look in your natal chart so you can understand your needs a lot better. Specifically, there are three planets and placements that you want to look at to understand your needs better. And this is super important because I find that in relationships, whether we're talking about romantic relationships, friendships, or family dynamics, there's often this song and dance that we do. Now, don't get me wrong, relationships do require a certain amount of compromise. But understanding who you are at your core, and when you do understand who you are and what you need, oftentimes you realize it's not to your benefit to deny those needs or to compromise them away, right? And often we do this song and dance where we're like, okay, this person thinks I'm too much. They think I'm too clingy, too emotional. I need to dial it back a bit, or I need to just shut that off completely. That's typically not always the best way to handle it, right? I like to think of this kind of discovery of your needs as like a two-step process. Number one, it's about understanding what you need. And number two, it's about vocalizing and executing on those desires. Now, what you do with that information is ultimately up to you. Sometimes in relationships, we realize, okay, maybe I do need to dial it back a little bit. Or other times, that need is so great and it's so essential to our well being that we're just like, listen, I can't compromise that. I like being emotional. I like being affectionate. Or I like being more intellectual. I like being a little more hands off, and I'm not willing to compromise that. But knowing the information is the first step, and that's what this video is all about. All right. So let's get into the astrology and talk about the placements that speak to those needs in relationships. So the first planet that speaks to this in your natal chart is your moon, and especially the characteristics of the sign of your moon, right? So the moon represents what you need to feel emotionally safe, soothed, protected. It speaks to your emotional well being and your inner world. But your moon isn't just your emotions, right? It's not even just your emotional body. It shows the kind of care, consistency, and atmosphere that you need regularly to feel okay, right? It's how you are nurtured, it's how you're emotionally satisfied. So, of course, this is why I have to mention it first. But here's the problem. So, you know your moon sign, you know the characteristics of your moon sign. And if you know them, comment below what they are. I'd be so curious to know, right? But when the needs of your moon, right, or just basically your emotional needs are chronically unmet, this is when you'll hear things like, you're too much, you're too emotional, You are too clingy. You need affection all the time, right? And it's not that you're too much. You are emotionally undernourished. And that's important. Just like nutrition in your body, right? Your body says, I need these nutrients to feel healthy and to operate optimally, right? If you are malnutrition, what happens? Your muscles atrophy, you're weak, you can't perform optimally. Same thing with your emotions. If you are emotionally malnourished, you need hugs, you need affection, you need emotional safety, you need to be soothed, or perhaps maybe you need emotional distance, or you need space, or you need to be not so handsy or too clingy, right? Those needs need to be addressed and they need to be nourished, right? Just like food nourishment. So understanding the characteristics of your moon, like if you've got moon in Pisces or moon in Scorpio, right? That deep emotional bond, that spiritual bond even is a part of what you need to feel emotionally healthy and to operate optimally in relationships. Maybe you have your moon sign in an air, maybe you have your moon in an air sign, right? Where it's more about communication and, intellectualizing things as opposed to being handsy and touchy-feely. Or maybe you've got your moon in an earth sign, meaning that you need stability and groundedness to feel emotionally okay. Understanding those characteristics is the first step. And understanding how that translates into your relationship, right? What does emotional groundedness look like in your relationship? Maybe it's someone who gives you emotional support. Maybe it's someone who gives you hugs all the time. Maybe it's someone who affirms you and makes you feel good about yourself, right? Understanding that is the first step, okay? But the bottom line, if your moon and those characteristics have not been met, those emotional needs can start to feel like a burden, not only to your counterpart, but to yourself. So it's really important that you address what you need and then follow through with those needs. Next, we take it a little deeper with your Venus sign. So, yes, Venus is the planet of relationships, right? It deals with relationships, but it also deals with love, reciprocity, value, self-worth, and beauty, right? These are all kind of the cornerstone elements of a relationship. And so your Venus sign can tell you how you feel good about yourself, how you feel valued, how you feel beautiful, how you receive and give affection, right? Super important. Now, the problem becomes when you are in a relationship with someone who has a mismatched Venus style, right? This is when you'll hear things like, or feel things like undesirability. You don't feel wanted. You don't feel desired. You may be labeled high maintenance. You may be labeled hard to love, right? It's because Venus in relationships gives you like a criteria. And it says, this is what I need. This is what I'm willing to give. And this is how I receive, right? And again, if there's a mismatch in this relationship, that's when you'll hear those things. So your Venus sign speaks to sort of how you feel about yourself, how you feel about relationships, period, how you give and receive affection. Maybe, again, you're someone who's hands-on, who's touchy-feely. Maybe you're someone who feels more secure in relationships when there are a lot of resources. Maybe you need a lot of gifts. Maybe you need a lot of verbal reinforcement or verbal affirmations, right? Your Venus sign can often speak to the love languages that we're all so familiar with. But again, if there's a mismatch, you could be labeled high maintenance. Maybe you're someone who has a Venus and an earth sign. And so self-care and luxury and comfort are very much a part of your relationship style and what makes you feel secure in relationships, right? But then maybe you're with someone who's like a Venus and air sign, who's not really concerned with the material and tangible elements of a relationship, but more so they're about communication, they're about words of affirmation. So again, it's important to understand your Venus sign and what you need to feel love, to feel affection, and to understand how the relationships dynamics work in terms of how you give and receive love. Now, this video is just scratching the surface because just the sort of concept of giving and receiving love is very complex. People have wounds around giving love, people have wounds around receiving love, and that's a whole other sort of therapy psychological thing. But your Venus sign can really speak to the foundation of that. So understanding that and then executing on that is going to be super important. So then again, your needs are met. And then finally, the other placement that I want to talk about is Saturn. Now, Saturn, people often feel like Saturn is the Debbie Downer of relationships. Saturn can be very negative. It deals with obstacles and challenges, and that is true. But Saturn sort of tests you in order to build a strong foundation that can stand the test of time. But in relation to the topic of this video, when we're talking about Saturn, Saturn in your natal chart shows where you experience limitation, where you personally hold, suppress, or harden in life, period. So you can't talk about the good without talking about the not so good. And understanding your Saturn sign isn't necessarily about understanding your needs, but it helps you understand how you show up in relationships, how you may limit yourself or the limitations you may bring in a relationship. Saturn can also talk about the shame that we carry, the shame that we bring into relationships, right? Saturn can also speak to where we've learned to become smaller, quieter, limit ourselves, reduce ourselves. And so understanding your Saturn sign is important because this is ultimately what you bring in relationships, right? Maybe you're someone who has Saturn in an air sign, right? And so this is where you quiet down literally because air signs are the signs of communication. So maybe you don't talk as much, right? Maybe you compensate with feelings and maybe you compensate with tangible things, but the verbal communication is where you are limited or maybe where you carry a lot of shame. Let's say you've got Saturn in a water sign. Same thing, but more on the emotional side. So you shy away from emotions. You don't show as much, or maybe you don't let someone in emotionally because that is where you are limited. That is where you carry shame, or that is where you just put up a wall, a boundary, or an obstacle. So understanding that is really important because it shows what you carry, what you bring to the relationship, because it's what you carry within yourself. So when you look at all three of these together, the moon, which is your emotional body, Venus, which is how you feel valued and how you give and receive love, and Saturn, when it comes to the limitations or perhaps the shame that you bring into relationships, now you have a really good picture of how you're showing up and what you need. And so now it's up to you to decide whether whoever you're dealing with meets those needs or is compatible with those things. Now, compatibility is a whole separate topic, right? It is this delicate song and dance that we typically engage in with people that's more than just, I have Saturn in Aries, you have Saturn in Libra, and we're incompatible. It goes much deeper than that. But the purpose of this video and the information in this video is to help you understand the very foundation, the very baseline of who you are, what you need, and how you show up in relationships so you can have better relationships. Now, I'm not trying to make this seem overly simplistic because it's not. But once you understand the foundation, now you can move on to more advanced things. So let's get into a real world example and how this can play out in real time. And I'll use myself as an example. All right. And so for me, I have a moon in Pisces, so hella sensitive. I've got Venus in Scorpio, hella intense. And I've got Saturn in Libra, which is very much on the verbal communication side, right? Now, it took me a while to understand my needs in relationships, right? Especially the sensitivity part. I would get overly sensitive when it came to, do you tell me that you love me? Are you, even in friendships, are you attuned to my needs? Are you meeting those needs? Are you making me feel safe? And when those needs aren't met, I'm like the fish, I just swim away. I completely withdraw, I completely shut down, right? And then when you add Saturn in Libra, I shut down communication. I don't talk. I don't want to talk about how I feel. I don't want to talk about how my needs aren't being met. And so you can see how that can really create an environment where it's this hamster wheel of needs not being met, but then not even being able to talk about it and then just withdrawing and swimming away so that the relationship either fizzles out Or the counterpart gets really upset, they feel rejected, and then it turns into this whole big blow up situation. But I've come to understand my sensitivities, especially because I have Venus and I have the moon and my moon in water signs, right? And understanding the sensitivity of it, and also understanding that perhaps people either don't have the capacity to meet me there or it's a slow process. That Venus and Scorpio can be really intense. I like to, the analogy I like to use is that like I'm a deep sea scuba diver. I'm like going to the very darkest, bottomest part of the ocean. And sometimes I'm in relation with people who like to stand on the shore. They either don't know how to swim or they're only comfortable going up to their knees or going up to their neck. And meanwhile, I've got my scuba gear on and I am deep sea diving with all the fish, right? And it's about compromise. Maybe I need to come up for air a little bit, or maybe I need to slowly guide this person into the ocean so that they can start getting comfortable with the temperature of the water, the depth of the water, the wildlife that's all in the water, right? Hopefully you're getting what I'm giving you with this analogy, right? But understanding that helped me show up in relationships better. It also, especially with my moon in Pisces, it helped me have more empathy for my counterparts. Instead of just saying, oh, this person's an asshole because they're not meeting me where I'm at, or they're dismissing my emotions, or they're just not understanding me, it's like, okay, maybe I am not too much, but maybe I am really comfortable in emotions. Maybe I'm really comfortable in difficult conversations or conversations that are emotionally intense, and this person is not. They're not used to that. And so it requires a certain amount of tempering. I've also been in relationships where I'm like, some people are so not comfortable with emotions that I'm like, okay, this isn't where I need to be. This is not a relationship that I feel good in because it requires me to suppress who I naturally am too much. And I've had to walk away from certain relationships that just couldn't do that for me. But again, the understanding is not only the foundation, but it is the key to unlocking more advanced topics, to unlocking, more advanced dynamics in relationships in order to have healthier relationships. All right. So hopefully my example and my analogy made sense to you. Right. So now how can this work for you? So I've got two things. Number one, there is, apart from the three planets that I mentioned in this video, there's also a single planet in your natal chart that is sort of driving everything, and it's called your chart ruler. Now, understanding your chart ruler can really color not just your relationships, but it can color how you make money, how you make friends, how you do things in life, right? It's a whole thing. And on April 9th, I'm going to be doing a very quick workshop on your chart ruler, not just what it is and how to find it, but how to work with it. And I'm going to give you three practical tips to use in real time, in real life, so that you can make the most of your chart ruler, so that perhaps you can have better relationships or maybe even a better career situation, right? So if you're interested in that, the link to sign up is in the description box below. Again, it's a short, quick little workshop happening on April 9th. Now, if you want to know about your moon sign, your Venus sign, Saturn, and everything else in your chart in depth, so you understand your needs in a very comprehensive sort of way, and you understand how you show up in relationships, then you'll definitely want to sign up for my signature natal chart experience, which is the blueprint. All right. This is not your regular, degular natal chart reading. I have a special framework that I use that's unique to me that not only delves into your natal chart, but it also tells you what chapter you're in life, what chapter you are in right now in life, and the transits of what's going on right now. So you not only understand how you're designed, you understand how that design is playing out in real time in your life right now. It's a whole thing. People who have taken this experience or who have signed up for this service are beyond satisfied with the information that they get. And the way that I designed it, it's so that, I remember when I was getting, natal chart readings, and they're great and they're informative. You even get the recording, but it's almost like a one and done kind of a thing, right? It's like, okay, I learned this thing and that's pretty much it. And I stuff it in the back of my mind. The way that I have sort of put together this service is that it's kind of ongoing in terms of the learning and in terms of understanding your natal chart long term. So, if you are interested in signing up for this service, the first step would be to book a free 15-minute clarity call with me. We can discuss this service from soup to nuts, how it can work for you, and if it's the right service for you. Right. So, the link to that is in the description box below. Or if you're someone who is very decisive and you know that you want to get started, the link to book the blueprint is also in the description box below. All right. So that's pretty much all I've got for you for this video. And the point of this, again, was to help you understand your needs in relationships because it's not that you're too much, it's just that those needs have been unmet. And when you understand what those needs are, you can finally take the steps to have them being met. And don't we all want that in relationships? I know I do. All right, my loves. So that concludes this video. I hope that it was informative. If it was, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to set notifications as well. And let me know in the comment section below, what is your moon sign, your Venus sign, or your Saturn sign, and how has it affected your relationships? I'm dying to know. All right, my loves. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.